In 921 CE, the Caliph of Baghdad sent Ibn Fadlan, an Arab faqih, an expert in Islamic jurisprudence and faith, with an embassy to the king of the Bulgars of the Middle Volga. His journey, and particularly his first-hand account of a Viking funeral, have earned him a place as one of the Middle Ages' greatest travelers. Here is what he witnessed in his own words. When they came to the grave, they removed the earth from above the wood, then the wood, and took out the dead man clad in the garments in which he had died. I saw that he had grown black from the cold of the country. They put intoxicating drink, fruit, and a stringed instrument in the grave with him. They removed all that. The dead man did not smell bad, and only his color had changed. They dressed him in trousers, stockings, boots, a tunic, and kaftan of brocade with gold buttons. They put a hat of brocade and fur on him. Then they carried him into the pavilion on the ship. They seated him on the mattress and propped him up with cushions. They brought intoxicating drink, fruits, and fragrant plants, which they put with him, then bread, meat, and onions, which they placed before him. Then they brought a dog, which they cut in two and put in the ship. Then they brought his weapons and placed them by his side. Then they took 2 horses, ran them until they sweated, then cut them to pieces with a sword and put them in the ship. Next they killed a rooster and a hen and threw them in. The girl slave who wished to be killed went here and there and into each of their tents, and the master of each tent had sexual intercourse with her and said, "Tell your lord, I have done this out of love for him." Friday afternoon, they led the slave girl to a thing that they had made which resembled a door frame. She placed her feet on the palms of the men, and they raised her up to overlook this frame. She spoke some words, and they lowered her again. A second time, they raised her up, and she did again what she had done. Then they lowered her. They raised her a third time, and she did as she had done the 2 times before. Then they brought her a hen. She cut off the head, which she threw away, and then they took the hen and put it in the ship. I asked the interpreter what she had done. He answered, "The first time they raised her, she said, 'Behold, I see my father and mother.' The second time she said, 'I see all my dead relatives seated.' The third time she said, 'I see my master seated in paradise, and paradise is beautiful and green. With him are men and boy servants. He calls me, take me to him.' Now they took her to the ship. She took off the 2 bracelets she was wearing and gave them both to the old woman called the Angel of Death, who was to kill her. Then she took off the 2 finger rings which she was wearing and gave them to the 2 girls who had served her and were the daughters of the woman called the Angel of Death. Then they raised her onto the ship, but they did not make her enter the pavilion. After that, the group of men who have cohabitated with the slave girl make of their hands a sort of paved way whereby the girl, placing her feet on the palms of their hands, mounts onto the ship. The men came with shields and sticks. She was given a cup of intoxicating drink. She sang at taking it and drank. The interpreter told me that she in this fashion bade farewell to all her girl companions. Then she was given another cup. She took it and sang for a long time while the old woman incited her to drink up and go into the pavilion where her master lay. I saw that she was distracted. She wanted to enter the pavilion but put her head between it and the boat. Then the old woman seized her head and made her enter the pavilion and entered with her. Thereupon the men began to strike with the sticks on the shields, so that her cries could not be heard, and the other slave girls would not seek to escape death with their masters. Then 6 men went into the pavilion, and each had intercourse with the girl. Then they laid her at the side of her master. 2 held her feet and 2 her hands. The old woman known as the Angel of Death re-entered and looped a cord around her neck and gave the crossed ends to the 2 men for them to pull. Then she approached her with a broad-bladed dagger, which she plunged between her ribs repeatedly, and the men strangled her with the cord until she was dead. Then the closest relative of the dead man, after they had placed the girl whom they have killed beside her master, came, took a piece of wood which he lighted at a fire, and walked backwards with the back of his head toward the boat, and his face turned toward the people, with one hand holding the kindled stick and the other covering his anus, being completely naked, for the purpose of setting fire to the wood that had been made ready beneath the ship. Then the people came up with tinder and other firewood, each holding a piece of wood of which he had set fire to an end, and which he put into the pile of wood beneath the ship. Thereupon the flames engulfed the wood, then the ship, the pavilion, the man, the girl, and everything in the ship. A powerful, fearful wind began to blow so that the flames became fiercer and more intense. One of the Russ was at my side, and I heard him speak to the interpreter who was present. I asked the interpreter what he said. He answered. He said, "You Arabs are fools." "Why?" I asked him. He said, "You take the people who are most dear to you, and whom you honor most, and put them into the ground where insects and worms devour them. We burn him in a moment, so that he enters paradise at once." Then he began to laugh uproariously. When I asked why he laughed, he said, "His Lord, for love of him, has sent the wind to bring him away in an hour." And actually an hour had not passed before the ship, the wood, the girl and her master were nothing but cinders and ashes.